spinal
Yeah.
surgical equipment, and then you wanted to be in the movies. Here I am, like bragging, like I used to be an accountant, and then I went into like marketing and crypto. But like, look at you.
Well, I was young at the time, right? So, young, foolish, not really entirely certain what I wanted to do. So, playing around with a lot of things. I mean, I'm still a partner in a film company. We still have a bunch of, crypto projects, NFT projects, and things like that that we're working on the side. None of them come to like massive fruition yet, but that's still. I like technology, and that's the one thing that it took me a long time to realize is that I really, really, really love technology. So if there's anything out there that's new, different, um, AI, metaverse, IoT, driving cars, all these things that are living on the edge, right? That's where I live and that's where I thrive, and it's really a fantastic thing, a place for me to be. So I was able to build a web development company, do information security, so security for infrastructure and for networks and things like that. And we had some very large companies that were on our roster, like Motorola, U.S. Navy, etc. That was back in the day.
So,
And
so, so
then
let, let let's
it
yeah. I was just wondering, like,
go
before
ahead,
we
go
go
ahead,
on,
go ahead.
I really want, because I'm curious about film as well. Like, what exactly did you do for film industry? Like, you still say you have it, like you got some projects there.
Yeah, so I mean, um, I personally was involved in writing a few films. I used to write children's cartoons when I was in university. So Busy World of Richard Scarry, you can look me up. It's all over YouTube, right? I have some credits there. I did Petit Loulou. I did Animal Crackers and a couple of other things. And those were for kids, right? It just got me through university. It was just something to spark my creative energy.
Uh-huh.
And what I find with technology is and it's funny because now all the large companies like IBM and Red Hat and even the Intels of the world, they have TME groups, technology, media, and entertainment groups, because I think they figured out the secret sauce that I didn't realize existed. So, technology, media, and entertainment all go together because they all rely on each other, and you can be very, very creative with technology. You can be very creative with media. Media is marketing, and entertainment, of course, is what you need the
Hmm.
infrastructure for all the fat pipes.
And it's all
So
connected by a screen on your phone.
exactly, or on your phone, or whatever you're gonna put on your eyes, or whatever,
Right, right.
or your laptop or your TV. I mean, I find this stuff not just fascinating. I'm so passionate about it, and the creativity involved with it is just unique. So you can take film, video, like we were doing multimedia CDs back in the day. I don't even know if any of your listeners know what a CD is anymore, but
I'm sure
they
they
were
are.
compact discs that we stuck them in a machine and you could play a song, not streaming, but also you could take the same CD, throw it in your computer, and then you get a multimedia experience. So we were doing that stuff very, very early on. And we did a website for King Kong, which was reissued by RKO Radio Pictures, which was probably one of the first film or movie websites that was out at the time. And so we got involved with a lot of really interesting things, and it allowed us to take the technology, the entertainment, and the media and combine it together. And now I'm finding more and more that is much more necessary because you can't be all left brain all the time or all right brain all the time. You need to have some kind of a mix. And one of the things you brought up at the beginning of the podcast was mental health and physical health. I went through a period where I had very, very poor physical health. So I used to smoke too much, used to drink too much, used to fly on planes too much, didn't exercise, really didn't take care of myself at all. I think at my worst, I was probably around 185 pounds. I'm down to about 153, 154, something like that. But I work out every day. I meditate every day now. I do yoga every day, go for long walks. These things that are really take personal responsibility for my physical being and my mental being. And I find that our industry, because it is so fast paced and it's so high pressure and it's moves so quickly and the technology changes so quickly that you have to keep up, that it's very difficult to maintain that center line for yourself.
So that's interesting. Um, so it sounds like you're just listed a lot of bad habits that you were basically into, but at the same time you're a higher performer, and you're always doing all these projects, with tech and security and everything that you just discussed. do you feel like you had to endure those bad habits? And they're not that bad. I mean, it's not like you were on heroin or something. You were just, you said you were a smoker or something.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, at what point do you feel like you had to do it? So that was kind of like your choice of balance. You had to like relax with like smoking and
So
junk food and all
if you
that.
if you look at and thank you for calling me a high performing individual, but I mean, if you look at some of the really high performing individuals that are out there, um, there's a lot of ADHD, a lot of ADD, a lot of OCD, a lot of mental challenges that come. And when you push yourself to the brink of creativity and it becomes very, very difficult to discern what is real and what is not real. And sometimes people just need these things to just, depress the system and calm it down. And that's what sometimes people do. Now, I will tell you, right? You can't do that all the time because I also broke my back, as I told you before
Right.
prior to this, and it comes from very bad living and not taking care of yourself. Now, other people go through even worse things, which is they have massive coronaries at 40. Like this is a thing now, or massive coronaries at 50, and they die. And it's very high pressure situation. So what I've come to realize is that really going one extreme to another doesn't work. You really need balance. I'm a Libra. You
Same.
gotta balance. You gotta balance everything. That's why we get along.
There you
Um,
go.
you gotta balance everything out, right?
What
Go ahead.
So at what point did you understand that? Because you have to like come to it at some point. And at what point did you say like, okay, this is not okay. I need to change my life. I need to change my health. I need to change my mental health as well as physical.
Yeah, unbelievably, that was probably about 8 years ago, right? Though it's very recent, as far as I'm concerned. And there's a lot of this trying to try, if you will. So it's like I'm trying to be better and trying to take care of my mental health and trying to work out and trying to do meditation and trying to create balance in my life. But that's all trying to try. And the day was probably about 5 years ago, maybe, where I said, I'm just going to do. I just woke up one morning and I said, anything I haven't worn for 10 years, I'm throwing out. Or not throwing out, but giving away, right? So, which I did. Anything that I haven't touched, any box that I haven't opened in 10 years, I'm throwing it away blind. I don't care what's in it, right? Releasing yourself from some of those anchors is a first really easy step, but it's also emotionally hard because we're people. So you want to look at what's in the box. You want to see what's there, but that's the same thing as like emptying out an apartment after a loved one has passed away. You'll open a box, you'll see pictures, and you'll sit there and you'll go through things, and you'll start to cry, or you'll start to feel an emotional thing, a moment which may or may not prevent you from getting rid of those things. And so that's what I did. That's not necessarily for everybody, but I did that. And that in and of itself, it takes a certain I don't want. It's not confidence. It's a certain bravado. It just where you fight yourself and just say,
Courage.
"I'm going to do this so that I can change." And as you
So,
start
so that
making
was kind of
these
like a
steps,
that was sorry to interrupt, but
no, go ahead.
it sounds like it's like a ritual basically that you went through where you let go of things of the past, and there was this
Absolutely,
like it was a symbol of beginning of something new in your life.
absolutely. Like I always believe that every ending is a new beginning, right? That's one of my core beliefs. Um, and as things end, whether it's a relationship or a marriage or passing of a loved one or whatever the case may be, I always look for what can I take away from that and how can I learn from that. And the biggest thing for me, the biggest wake up call was when I broke my back because I was out for almost 2 years, didn't work. We lived off savings, etc. And we
Sorry to
managed
ask,
to
but
get through that.
how
Go ahead.
did that happen? I mean, that sounds like such a huge physical trauma.
So it's bad living, right? It was a lot of bad living, not taking care of yourself. Back muscles get tight. You're on the plane all the time. You're flying back and forth, and you can fly back and forth. I've done it, but then take time for yourself. Get a massage. Take a hot shower. Go to a spa. Do something for yourself. And we're so conditioned in this high-paced world to not do things for ourselves, that you when you compound it on top of compounding it on top of compounding it, then you get physical problems, you get mental health problems or challenges that you have to try and overcome. I went through two burnouts while I was the CEO of a CLEC here in Canada, and couldn't tell anybody because God forbid you tell somebody something like that, then you might lose your job. It was a private company, and
Yeah, especially
that's
if
it.
you're at the top spot basically, and you cannot basically share
Like
that.
who are you supposed to rely on? Who you're supposed to talk to, right? Except for your psychologists and anyone like that. And I will I will say anybody who is in tech who is in a high pressure position should be speaking to someone that is not their family, that is not their friends, because it's the healthiest thing that you can do for yourself. And I did it, and it helped me immensely. And it allowed me to create a center for myself, which is now such a strong core and such a strong center that can never be moved.
It's funny you've mentioned the psychologist, but you said, also not your friends or not your family. Do you think it's counterproductive to share your worries with your closed ones?
No, it's not necessarily counterproductive to share your worries with your close ones. I definitely think like if you have close family and close colleagues that you can trust, then absolutely. But if you are in an environment where technology unfortunately creates a certain fear factor in terms of organizations that you work in, you can't tell your colleagues about your personal life, or we dissect and create these lines very very hard so that you know what I I play in a band. I play guitar. I sing, right? My bass player works for somebody else, or my guitar player works, or my other guitarist works for someone else, right? They won't talk about their personal lives with their employers because they don't want that to intermingle. Now, that is a way of creating balance. I'm not sure that how healthy that is either, right? But I'm not saying the way I'm doing it is the most healthy way. I just know that for me it works.
Right. And so once you went through that ritual of throwing, away like your past that you were like the anchors that you were holding on to, what was sort of like the next stage for you? What was the second thing that you decided to do in terms of your health?
So this is interesting, right? So I read a book by a guy named Brendan Burchard, excuse me, and he's got a podcast, which is the Brendan Burchard Show, and it changed my life. Someone gave me the book. I read the book. Series 4 of his podcast is him reading his book, um, and it was about high functioning people who end up in this exact same rut that I was in. And one of the things that he says in the book that I found incredibly powerful, which really changed my life, is take a measure of how much money you want to spend on yourself, taking care of your health while you are sick, while you're 70, 80, 90, if God forbid, that God bless you that you're able to do it, get that age, and dealing with your sickness, and then decide how much you're willing to spend now on your health. So I joined a kickboxing studio. I joined a gym. I bought a Fitbit. Started, paid for some health apps and things like that to help me build programs and things like that. Paid for personal trainers. Um, so that was what I invested in myself, and I feel a million times better. Been doing that for 4 years, and during the pandemic, it was hard, right? Because as you go through the pandemic, you're stuck at home. So I just went and bought a whole bunch of gym equipment. So I have rogue plates, I have I have bars here, I've got kettlebells here, I've got stability balls, and I do it every single day without fail. And even if I can't have the time to do that, I will make sure I go out for a long walk. And if any of you follow my Instagram, it's into Sandeep. It's right there in the thing. You can see like this morning I posted all the morning pictures of me going out. I go out to the lake. I just sit at the lake for a half hour, and I look out and I meditate and I think, and that brings an internal peace, which allows me to do the things that I need to do in a much better way than I was doing when I was 20 or 25 or 30 when all of this stuff happened.
How old are you right now?
I just turned 52.
Wow. I thought you were much younger because you look so much younger. Wow.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, it's funny because when I was 35, everybody probably thought I was 50. So it also takes care of a lot of that piece of you too.
So Sandeep, I'm sure like some listeners are, probably super stressed out or like they work a lot, and you just listed so many things, classes, purchasing feedback, tracking your stuff, kettlebells, meditation walks. If there was like one thing, and I'm not saying like one is better than another, but obviously there is a balance and a good mixture of everything. But if you had to like recommend just one thing that people should start with from everything that you just listed, what would you recommend that thing be
So I think the
as a
thing that
start?
yeah, as a start, I would recommend people sit down with a piece of paper and a pen, build two columns. Here are all the things I'm doing in the left column right now. And here are all the things that I want to do. And then ask yourself, why aren't you doing them? And what are the things in the left column that you could drop to make time so that you can do the things that you wanted to do? Whether it's health, whether it's meditation, whether it's working out, whether it's going on a plane and taking a trip to Bali or wherever you might be, or Singapore or Chicago, it doesn't matter, right? Ask yourself those fundamental questions because you will be able to build a bridge and sit there and go, wow, some of these things that I'm doing are kind of useless and they're just time sucks. And here are the things that I want to do that I want to give time to, and they don't take a lot of time, but I've created such, I don't want to say chaos, but it's like a little bit of a disorder in my life that it's difficult to actually go from one to the other because you get stuck in a routine. So break the routine, break the habit, create a new habit, do something new for 21 days. Go for a walk every morning for 21 days, whether it rain, snow, shine, it doesn't matter.
Why do you think so many people are stuck in this routine limbo that they're just not noticing the world around them? Like what's happening with tech society right now? Like do you think like this is a mass
This
problem?
this is what's happening.
Sandeep is showing a phone right now.
Yeah, that's what's happening. It's exactly that. It is everybody's got their necks craned. Have you noticed the number of people that are walking around like sort of hunched over? Right? It's because their necks are craned because they've trained their muscles to bend their heads to look at their phones. And it is we are being sucked into this. I had a conversation with a really good friend of mine last night, Mark, who he works for the UN,
I
and
thought you're gonna say Zuckerberg.
no, no, I don't know him. We're not friends. No, but Mark, who he works for the UN and he works for UNESCO. Actually, he's a huge big data analyst for them. We had this whole conversation yesterday about how we're rotting our brains. We couldn't remember the name of an actor in a film, and I said, "Wow, thank God I have IMDb that I can go on in there." And he goes, "You know what? That's what's rotting our minds. We're not exercising our brains." And he's an incredibly smart person. So it's really, um, I think we're too trained now like this. And I look at my children growing up, first thing out of bed, it's like pick up the phone. Like I don't pick up my phone for an hour when I get out of bed.
Is that
Uh,
intentionally or is it
it's
just like the way?
intentional. It's absolutely intentional. I do not pick up a phone until I get out an hour until I get out of bed. I put my meditation music on before I go to bed and it goes off by itself after an hour or 2 hours, something like that. Don't touch the phone. It's on do not disturb. There are certain people that can get through my do not disturb screen if they call twice, like my kids or my ex-wife or whatever the
Right.
case may be, right? Or my parents as well too, with family primarily, right? Work, no, forget about it. I'm asleep. Leave me alone. And those are little things that you can do. I have on my phone a reminder that goes off every 4 hours, and it reminds me to be engaged, to be passionate, and to be honest with everyone around me. Every 4 hours, without fail, it goes off on my phone. And it's tied to my Alexa, tied to my Google, and it always goes off. No matter where I am, I always get it. And so it's also a reminder, like every 4 hours, to recenter myself.
The other, like last night, I had a difficulty falling asleep, and
Mm.
I think like some people are having those difficulties as well. So, how many hours do you usually sleep per night? And do you sometimes have difficulties falling asleep? And what do you do to fall asleep?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I have difficulties falling asleep. So I'm one of those people where it's very difficult to turn off my mind. So when I get into bed, it's like click, 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 and it becomes very difficult to fall asleep. However, I do meditate every single night before I go to bed. So that does help. And this business of getting up at 5:30 in the morning or the 5 o'clock club, I'm not sure I 100% buy into this. However, I do know that when I'm up at 5 in the morning, I feel great. And I've gotten a lot done. And then at 8 o'clock, I'm like, wow, I sit at my computer, I can do a bunch of stuff. But then I'm like working at 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to do that. But the other thing that I've started doing now is, so I was getting up at quarter to 6 or 5:30 or 5, like it was always alternating between those three. Um, what I've started doing now is I have an Alexa, I've got a light, and so it does a sunshine alarm, so or sunrise alarm. So there's no music, there's no nothing. The light bulb just slowly goes on, and it's very gentle, and it's such a nice way to wake up. Like I don't have the radio blaring in my ear or anything like that. So that's one thing that I do. It helps me with wake up. The other thing that I do as well too with sleep, around sleep, is that I've now started getting up at 5:30 in the morning, starting my routine, but I'm only doing that 3 days a week. The other 2 days, like Tuesday and Thursday, I allow myself to sleep until 8 a.m. Right?
Hmm.
And it doesn't mean that I go to bed later the night before. I just allow my body to take that additional rest. And those nights where I allow my body to take that additional rest, I feel so much better in the morning. So when you ask how much I sleep, in general, I'm about a 6 hour a night sleeper. But those 2 days, I'll take the 8 hours, right? Like go to bed at 11 and get up at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. Take the full 8 hours and allow myself to do that. And even if I'm awake in bed, I allow myself to lie in bed and think and meditate and not touch my phone. So I'm not checking WhatsApp, not checking Facebook, not checking Insta or anything like that, not posting anything. Just literally lie there and think about, what do I want to do for myself today that is going to make me a better person? And I always tell myself every morning, you know, today I will be a better person than I was yesterday. That's it.
Do you sometimes like sleep? Meaning, like, do you sometimes fail to do these things that you mention? Like, I feel like we all human being, right? Yes, we have to have like this discipline. Not like some people have this discipline, but do you like? Are you like a Jocko Willing type of style? I always wake up at that, like at 5 and 8, or sometimes you're failing to do that.
I'm absolutely human like everyone else, and I err and I fail to do these things. I do make sure I meditate every single day. Sometimes I get up in the morning and it's like, oh damn, I'm late. I got to take my son to school. And then I'm like, well, I don't have time to meditate. So I will come back during the day and make sure I have the time to do it. That's one thing I'm always steadfast about. It may not be always at the same time. And there's some mornings you just wake up and you're just like, yeah, no, I'm not getting out of bed. It
Mhm.
happens, right? We're all human. We're all fallible. We're all imperfect. But I think if we embrace all of that imperfection, it gives us the ability to rise up above that and not be um, stuck to it. Like, I am not all high and mighty. I'm not better than anyone else. These are just the practices that I've implemented for myself that may or may not help others. And I would love if they could help others, because I've gone through a lot of things. And I invite your viewers to contact me and we can talk about it as well too. Um, I think that if we recognize that we're all fallible, then we take off a huge burden of pressure from our own personal shoulders. Because I think we are our own worst critics in this world. There's
So it's
nothing anyone can say to me that would be more critical than I would say to myself.
so it's important not to judge yourself.
Exactly.
Do you adhere to any like special diets? Like, what's your diet consist of right now?
Well, on good days, it consists of low carb intake and high protein, because I'm working out and I need that. However, on bad days, it consists of burgers and fries and things like that. I'm not perfect, you know, but at least I try to make it all at home. So we made hamburgers yesterday at home, so I did that. Making salmon on Saturday. Already, I'm not quite a meal planner, but I try to plan out what it is I'm going to eat. I
Hmm.
try not to eat out as much as I can, but then again, you travel, you go to conferences and things like that. It's difficult to go out to restaurants. That puts a certain pressure on you as well too. It's a very
Oh
high
yeah,
sugar,
always.
high sugar, high salt diets, right? And then there's the the cinq à sept or the networking hours and things like that, where
Hmm.
you have to participate,
I
which
failed miserably at that dinner.
so so there is that, but you can always make up for it. Like, you don't have to beat yourself up for one night or two nights or
Hmm.
whatever it is. And this body shaping society that we live in, where everybody's got perfect pictures and perfectly sculpted and perfectly filtered, it's like it's all BS, right? um, Live your best life for you, and just try to be a better person than you were yesterday. Just start with that.
Hmm. Sandeep, what are you focusing on right now professionally? Like, what takes the most part of your day these days?
So right now I'm looking at new technology, I'm looking at emerging technology and trying to figure out where all the lines intersect. That's one of the things that I'm very good at. Where I'm seeing things moving right now is, um, 5G, when it is mature, will be a huge key component for the underlying infrastructure. Satellite's going to be a huge key component of the infrastructure. Um, Self-driving or self-assisted cars, IoT. And then the data analytics and gathering from the edge, and how you process it and where you store it. That's going to be the big place. And so that's where I spend most of my brain power, thinking about that in terms of the future, how we're going to do this, how we're going to put it together. And more importantly, like, what I find super exciting right now is that we're in a transitory time, which means that we literally have regular houses with self-driving cars, drones, IoT, you know, things that can be remotely controlled without us doing it. We're gathering data off rail heat, CO2 emissions, things like that in buildings, and we're starting to control these things. And I see a world where we can have automated traffic lights, where traffic lights are sitting there going, "Oh, you know what? There are no cars. There's a pedestrian sitting there. We don't need to hold the red light for 30 seconds.
Right,
Just turn it
optimization,
green. Let
automate.
him go."
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Or let
Hmm.
her go, or let her go, right? So we're going to become a much more hyper optimized world, and I think the metaverse is going to is it's inevitable, and it's another piece of the puzzle where we're going to be able to do data analytics and optics and things like that by interacting with some of these devices in that world real time. And that's going to be really, really interesting to see how we do it. Is it going to be by having a phone strapped to your eyes? No, it's not. It's going to be something different. I think we're moving towards more of a holodeck kind of situation, where we need to get something like that going. I would love to see that. But yeah, those are the things that are concerning me these days right now.
Sandeep, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate that you told us not only about, the tech that you're working on right now, but also like your day to day. And I'm really happy that we focused this podcast on health, mental and physical. And I'm very inspired. I actually want to improve my discipline, and uh, that alarm clock with lighting, that's like a huge takeaway for me. I'm trying to do that too. I'll try to, purchase something like that as well, because yeah, I feel like that's so much better than, getting triggered by all the sounds in the morning, especially if you have to wake up early and stuff.
Go onto Amazon and look up the Sengled lights. That's the light bulb that I've got in my room, and I only have it in my room. But and they're supposed to last 10 years, so
Wow.
it's better than a regular light bulb.
Yeah, I'll check it out. It's not an ad, by the way, so that I really will
No,
check it out
you're right.
myself.
It's not an ad. It's not an ad. I'm just dropping it. There's tons. There's tons of them out there.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. I appreciate it. And I hope I will have you on my podcast again.